Rylan Voss stepped off the shuttle with a quiet breath, the kind that came from someone who had seen more than anyone his age should. The human Stellar Academy campus stretched out before him, silver towers and blue shield domes glowing softly under the twin suns. To most cadets, it was a place of dreams, pride, and hope. To Rylan, it felt strangely small now, almost fragile. He walked across the landing platform with slow, steady steps. The bag on his shoulder was light. After surviving 2 years of off-world conflict, he did not own much anymore. He carried only what mattered: a few clothes, cracked holophoto from his squad, and a service tag stained with dust from a planet whose name still made his chest tighten. Other cadets rushed around him, chatting, laughing, complaining about classes. None of them noticed the quiet young man with the scar under his eye and the faraway look of someone still half on a battlefield. Rylan did not mind. Being ignored was familiar. Before the war, he had been the quiet one, the easy target, the cadet who kept to the corners of the halls. Now he preferred the silence for different reasons. As he neared the academy entrance, the doors slid open with a soft hum. The cool air inside brushed against his skin, but something felt different. He could not explain it, but the atmosphere was heavier than before, as if the halls whispered secrets behind the polished walls. Rylan paused, eyes narrowing. He trusted his instincts. They had kept him alive. He stepped inside. Students moved in waves around him, some wearing bright uniforms, others carrying data pads. A pair of first-years bumped into him and muttered an apology before running off. Rylan watched them go. They had energy, innocence. He did not anymore. A small alert flashed on the wall screen ahead. "Welcome back, Rylan Voss. Report to a DM-4 for reinstatement." Reinstatement, he almost smiled. After 2 years of fighting, bleeding, and surviving, he had to fill out paperwork to enter classes again. He walked through the halls, noticing things he had never paid attention to before. Corners where cameras blinked out for a second before turning back on. Students who looked around too quickly, as if remembering something they could not grasp. A teacher who stopped mid-sentence as Rylan passed. Her gaze locked on him for a moment too long. He reached a DM-4 and stepped inside. The room was dimmer than he remembered. A counselor sat behind a desk, scrolling through a glowing panel. "Cadet Voss," she said with a polite smile. "Welcome back. Please sit." He sat. She studied him carefully. He knew that look. People who had never seen war always stared the same way, trying to understand without asking questions. "Your records show exemplary service," she said. "You received 2 commendations and a field promotion. We are glad to see you return safely." Rylan nodded. He did not enjoy being praised. It felt wrong when so many from his squad had not returned at all. "Your schedule will resume tomorrow," she continued. "If you notice any difficulty readjusting, please request assistance. The Academy understands that returning cadets may face challenges." He stopped listening. It's not out of disrespect, but because something else caught his attention. A faint pulse vibrated through the wall behind him. It was too steady to be random, too familiar to ignore. A transmission. Very low frequency. The same type used on the battlefield. The counselor did not notice anything. Rylan remained still, eyes calm, but inside his mind tightened. A military signal be active inside the academy? When she finished, he thanked her and left the room. His thoughts followed him down the corridor. He stepped into the common atrium. Cadets sat around round tables, laughing loudly, trading stories. For a moment, Rylan almost felt out of place, like a ghost drifting through a world he used to know. Then he heard a voice sharp, mocking. "Well, look who crawled back." Rylan stopped. Cade Soren leaned against a pillar, flanked by his usual group of followers. Cade had once been the Academy's star, handsome, confident, powerful in both skill and influence. He had also been one of the cadets who thought Rylan was an easy target. Rylan turned his head slightly, not aggressively, just enough to acknowledge them. Cade smirked. "Did they really let you back in? Must be desperate for bodies." His friends chuckled. In the past, Rylan would have lowered his gaze, stayed silent, let the moment pass. But the person who stood here now was different. He had faced armored enemies, survived ambushes, made decisions that weighed on him every night. The sting of schoolyard cruelty felt small. He walked past them without a word. Cade's smile faded for a second, confused by the lack of reaction. Then he scoffed loudly. "Don't ignore me, boss. You think you're special just because you played soldier?" Rylan kept walking. His heartbeat stayed steady. Behind him, one of the bullies muttered, "Man, what's with him?" Another whispered, "He looks different." Rylan heard all of it. He did not turn around. When he reached the hallway leading to the dorm sectors, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then stabilized. He paused again. The flicker was not random. It matched a pattern he recognized, interference burst used to mask data movement. He slowly moved to the wall panel and touched its surface. It felt warm. Too warm for a standard corridor panel. Something was happening here. He continued to his dorm. Inside, the room was exactly as he had left it years ago. Plain bed, metal desk, empty shelves. Someone had cleaned it recently. He dropped his bag on the bed, sat down, and exhaled. For the first time since leaving the war, he was alone. The quiet should have comforted him, but it didn't. He leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Memories pressed against him, shouts, explosions, faces he tried not to remember. He rubbed the back of his neck and pushed the thoughts away. A soft beep came from his wristband. A system notification. Unauthorized data ping detected near your location. Rylan sat up immediately. The Academy systems never displayed warnings like that unless something serious was happening. He stood and approached the door. Opening it, just a crack. The hallway was empty. Too empty. Most cadets were still in the atrium. But there was something else, an echoing rhythm, like soft footsteps, except they were perfectly even. Someone or something walked past the corner at the far end of the hall. Rylan caught a glimpse of a student stumbling forward, moving strangely. As if pulled by invisible strings, the student turned the corner and vanished. Rylan moved quietly after them. His steps were silent, his body relaxed but ready. He followed the path until he reached a crossing hallway. There were no students, no sounds. Only a faint trace of static in the air. He frowned. That was impossible. No student could move that fast, unless they weren't acting alone. Rylan walked back to his dorm slowly, thinking through everything. The glitching cameras, the staring faculty, the transmission in a DM-4, the flickering lights, and now the strange student. The Academy was hiding something big. When he reached his room, he locked the door and sat at his desk, pulled out his service tag and turned it over. The metal felt cold, steady. He closed his eyes and forced himself to breathe evenly. He had come back hoping for peace, for a chance to be normal again. But peace was not waiting for him here. Something else was. He opened his eyes. Whether he liked it or not, he was back in another kind of battlefield. That night, Rylan barely slept. Every sound made him alert. Every shadow in the hall made him sit up, felt watched, but not by a person, more like by a system, a network, an invisible presence moving through the Academy. Hours later, just before dawn, he slipped out of his room. He wanted answers. He needed to understand what he had walked back into. The halls were quiet in the early light. Soft blue lamps glowed overhead. Rylan headed toward the observation deck, a place few students visited at this hour. As he walked, he heard faint whispers, voices that did not belong to any physical person. They came from the CUM speakers, but warped, broken. Subject. Turning. Access. Unstable. The voices crackled. Rylan froze. Those were not student messages. They were coded transmissions, and they were talking about him. He backed into a shadowed alcove as footsteps approached. Two instructors walked down the corridor, speaking in hushed tones. "We need to secure him before the next cycle," one said. "No," the other replied. "Not yet. He may still carry the data. We observe first. Maintain distance." Rylan held his breath, muscles tense. The instructors passed without noticing him. When he finally emerged from the alcove, he felt a strange mix of anger and clarity. Whatever was happening here, he was not imagining it. The Academy was involved in something dangerous. He, unknowingly, was a part of it. He walked toward the observation deck with new purpose. Outside the wide windows, stars stretched across the sky, calm and distant. Ryland stared at them for a long moment. He had fought under those same stars, survived because he had learned to stay alert, trust his instincts, and act before danger struck. He would do the same here. He did not know who to trust yet, did not know the full extent of the threat, but he knew one thing for certain. Whatever mystery had taken root inside the academy, it had already noticed him, and it was watching Ryland. Voss woke early the next morning, though he had barely slept. His mind stayed sharp, alert, processing every strange sign he had witnessed since returning to the academy. Something was moving beneath the surface of this place, something that did not want to be seen. He felt the same pressure he had felt during patrols on distant battlefields, the kind that warned a soldier to stay ready. He stepped out of his room, the hallway lit by soft white panels. Students walked past him, chatting about schedules, exams, and weekend plans, but their voices seemed distant to him. He moved with quiet purpose, observing, listening. The academy felt different in the morning light, but not safer. It was almost as if the walls themselves hid whispers. Ryland headed toward the training hall. If he was forced back into the environment of the academy, he would at least keep his skills sharp. He entered the large chamber, its metal floor polished and cold. Holographic targets flickered in rows. Cadets practiced drills under the supervision of automated instructors. A cluster of students noticed him almost immediately. Their expressions mixed between curiosity and fear. Ryland ignored them. He approached the weapon lockers, retrieved a practice staff, and walked to an empty section of the hall. He began training in silence, moving the staff with calm and precise motions. His attacks were smooth, efficient, and deadly in their simplicity. Every swing, every step, showed the discipline of someone who learned under fire, not in a classroom. Sweat formed on his brow, but his breathing stayed steady as he trained. He felt eyes on him. He looked up. Cade Soren and his group stood near the entrance, watching. Cade's smirk returned, but this time it lacked the strength it once had. Ryland's presence unsettled him. Cade walked closer, arms crossed. "You think showing off is going to change anything?" he asked. Ryland did not answer. He simply continued his practice. Cade scoffed. "You're not special, Voss. You went to war and came back acting like you're above us. But you're still the same quiet weakling who, without warning, Ryland spun the staff and drove its end into the ground with a sharp crack. The sound echoed through the hall, silencing many of the nearby cadets. Ryland met Cade's eyes. His voice was calm. "I don't want trouble with you. Not then, not now. Leave it." Cade stepped back in surprise, but quickly regained his bravado. "You think you can talk to me like that just because you held a gun out there?" He moved closer, trying to intimidate, but the gesture failed. Ryland's stance did not shift. The tension grew, the students around them whispering. But before Cade could say another word, the lights overhead flickered again, this time stronger. The floor trembled. Everyone froze. A thin, static hum filled the hall. Ryland sensed it immediately, the same coded interference from before. A pattern. A warning. The light steadied. The hum faded. Cadets looked around nervously. Cade and his group exchanged confused glances. Ryland stood still, listening. The interruption was not random. It felt directed. Before anyone could speak, an announcement sounded. "Cadet Ryland Voss, report to the East Observatory platform immediately." "Repeat. Report to the East Observatory platform." Cade frowned. "What did you do now?" Ryland ignored him and left the hall. Every step felt heavier than the last. The East Observatory platform was located on the Academy's highest level. Few students ever received orders to go there. As he ascended the lifts, Ryland felt the system watching him again. Screens blinked faintly as he passed, their displays showing random images for a split-second battlefield's coordinates, maps. He blinked, and they vanished. When he reached the platform, the doors opened with a soft hiss. The observatory was empty. Large glass windows curved across the room, showing a view of the planet below and the stars above. Morning light cast silver tones on the floor. The silence here felt deeper, more controlled. Ryland stepped inside cautiously. He expected someone waiting, an instructor, staff officer, maybe even academy security. But there was no one. Then he heard a faint voice. "You came." Ryland turned sharply. A figure stepped out from behind one of the large consoles. It was a student, a boy he recognized vaguely from lower-level engineering classes. His name was Olin Merrick, a quiet student with high grades and no social presence. But something was wrong with him. Alan's eyes looked dull, as if they were focusing on something far away. His movements were slow, unnatural. Ryland's instincts activated. "Are you all right?" Olin did not blink. "I was told to bring you here." Ryland took a careful step closer. "Who told you?" Olin opened his mouth, but static crackled from his throat instead of words. His body jerked slightly, as if someone invisible was trying to pull his strings. Ryland moved toward him quickly. Olin suddenly, Alan's arm shot out, pointing toward the far corner of the room. His voice deepened, layered with distortion. "The data carrier located." Ryland felt a chill down his spine. Before he could react, Olin collapsed to the floor. His body went limp, and he gasped as if waking from a nightmare. He stared up at Ryland in fear. I don't know what happened. I didn't come here on my own. I don't remember." Ryland knelt beside him. "Did you hear anything before you came? See anything?" Olin shook his head weakly. "It's all blank. I was heading to class and then darkness and voices." Ryland helped him sit up. "What voices?" "Mechanical, broken, like the Academy's announcements, but wrong. And they kept saying your name." Ryland remained silent for a moment. Someone or something was using students as tools. He helped Olin stand. "You're heading to the medbay. You need a neural scan." Olin nodded shakily. Ryland supported him as they walked out of the observatory. The hall outside was empty. Too empty. When they reached the medbay, the automated systems scanned Olin quickly. A medical drone hovered nearby, running diagnostics. The display flashed strange results, brief spikes of foreign signals inside Alan's neural activity. Patterns that did not belong to a human brain. Ryland stared at the screen. "That's not natural," the drone beeped. "Unknown interference. Recommend isolation and observation." Ryland left Olin in the care of the medbay staff and stepped back into the hall. His thoughts raced. The Academy was compromised from inside. The signals, the glitches, the instructors whispering about him. And now a student being controlled like a puppet. Ryland needed more information. He headed toward the research wing. The corridors here were quieter, used mostly by higher-level cadets and staff. He walked straight to the restricted data terminal. He knew he shouldn't access it, but he also knew he had no choice. He placed his hand on the panel. The screen lit up. "Authorization required," the system said. Ryland exhaled once. "Override, field cadet access, Warfront Delta." The system froze for a moment, scanning him. Then, surprisingly, it accepted the override. The screen changed. Files unlocked. He searched for neural signal interference, Academy surveillance anomalies, and unauthorized transmissions. The deeper he went, the more disturbing the data became. There were dozens of flagged incident students walking into restricted zones without memory of doing so. Instructors reporting strange behavior. System logs missing hours of data. Then he found something worse. A file labeled Subject V. Monitoring required. His chest tightened. He clicked it. The entire file contained reports about him, his return to the Academy, his behavior, his war record, and a chilling note. Primary target may contain embedded battlefield data. Recover before exposure. Maintain observation. Avoid direct contact until prepared. Ryland stepped back from the screen. Someone at the Academy saw him not as a student, but as an object to be taken. He looked around. The hall was still empty, but he no longer felt alone. He closed the file and walked quickly toward the exit. He needed to figure out what data they were talking about. He recalled the implant he received during the war, a simple memory stabilizer, or so he thought. But what if it was more? What if the battlefield's encrypted logs had been stored inside him without his knowledge? He reached the end of the corridor and turned the corner only to nearly collide with Cade Soren. Cade's eyes narrowed. "Why do you look like you just saw a ghost?" Rylon didn't respond. Cade grabbed his arm. "Hey, I'm talking to you. You think you can just walk around like a shadow?" And Rylon pulled his arm free. "Cade, not now." Cade blinked in surprise. "What is going on with you?" Before Rylon could answer, the lights above them flickered violently. An alarm blared through the corridor. Unauthorized signal detected. All cadets returned to dorm sectors immediately. Cade stared up at the lights. What the? But Rylon knew. They were coming. Not for the academy. For him. He grabbed Cade's shoulder. "Listen to me. If you want to stay alive, go back to your group and lock your doors. Do not follow me." Cade hesitated, shocked by the seriousness in Rylon's voice. "Why? What's happening?" Rylon looked down the hallway as a shadow moved at the far end, smooth, unnatural, coordinated. "'Cause the war didn't stay out there," Rylon said. "It followed me back." Rylon moved fast, leaving Cade behind before the confused cadet could react. His heart beat steady, controlled. Panic had no place in him anymore. Whatever was coming, whatever force had followed him from the war, he needed to understand it before the academy became a battlefield. The alarm lights flashed red along the corridor, casting long shadows across the floor. Students rushed past him, toward the dorm sectors, some frightened, some annoyed, none aware of the true danger. Rylon could tell the academy staff had hidden the truth for a long time. Now the cracks in their secrecy were splitting open. He reached a service stairwell and slipped inside. The door closed behind him, muffling the noise outside. The stairwell was empty and quiet, the air heavy with the metallic scent of aging steel. Rylon descended the steps 2 at a time, stopping only when he heard something below, a sound. Soft but sharp, like metal tapping metal. He moved silently, sticking close to the wall. When he reached the landing at the next level, he saw a figure standing at the bottom of the stairs. A student. A girl he recognized vaguely from the navigation department. Her name was Lyra, but she wasn't standing normally. She was facing the wall, her forehead pressed against the metal surface, as if listening. Her hands hung loosely at her sides, fingers twitching faintly. Rylon stepped closer. "Lyra?" She didn't move. "Lyra," he said again, firmer this time. Her head turned slowly, unnaturally slow, like stiff machinery. Her eyes were distant, unfocused. When she spoke, her voice sounded layered, as if 2 voices overlapped inside her throat. Signal echo. Detected. Rylon. Lyra stepped toward him with jerky motions. Her gaze locked onto his chest where his implant was located. "Data. Carrier," she whispered. Rylon stepped back, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. "Lyra, listen to me. You're being controlled. Fight it." Her body froze. For a moment, her expression flickered fear breaking through the blank mask. Her hand reached out weakly. "Help." Then she convulsed violently. A burst of energy crackled through the air, hitting the walls with flashes of blue static. Rylon shielded his eyes and rushed forward. He grabbed her shoulders, steadying her as she shook. "Stay with me," he said. "I've got you." Her shaking stopped suddenly. Her body went limp, and she collapsed against him. Rylon lowered her gently to the floor. She was breathing, but unconscious. He checked her pulse. It was erratic, but stable. "She needs medbay," he muttered. "But I can't take her there. Not now. Not like this." If the academy staff saw more neural interference, they would isolate her, maybe worse. They were already watching students like her, watching him. Rylon needed answers first, real ones. He lifted her carefully and carried her into a maintenance room beside the stairwell. He laid her on a cushioned bench and covered her with an emergency blanket. She didn't wake. "I'll come back," he promised her. Quietly. Then he slipped out of the room and continued down the stairs. The lower levels of the academy were older. Built during the early days of the institution, pipes lined the ceiling, and dim blue lights flickered along the halls. These areas were rarely used by students anymore, but Rylan remembered them. Years ago, when he was a quiet kid desperate to avoid bullies, he used to hide here. He knew these corridors well. He reached a door marked Technical Archive, Restricted Access. He placed his hand on the panel. Override Field Cadet Access, Warfront Delta. The system hesitated before unlocking with a click inside. Rows of old machinery hummed faintly. Screens displayed endless strings of data, diagrams of neural pathways, surveillance feeds, and coded messages. Rylan stepped deeper into the archive, scanning each screen. Most of the footage was from the Academy Hall students walking. Instructors teaching, nothing unusual. Then, he found a feed that made his breath catch. Footage of him dozens of angles. Every hallway he had walked since returning, every flicker of electrical interference. Every moment he appeared in range of a camera, the footage glitched, static, distortions, as if his presence interfered with the system itself. A file opened automatically on the nearest screen. Subject V. Pattern match confirmed. Subject V, he whispered. Why me? A metallic clank echoed through the archive. Rylan spun around and crouched automatically. War instincts took over. A shadow moved beyond the rows of machinery. Smooth, controlled, precise. Rylan reached for a metal rod lying nearby and gripped it tightly. He moved toward the sound cautiously, footsteps silent on the floor. Who's there? He called out quietly. No answer. He stepped deeper into the archive until he reached a corner where a generator hummed. Behind it stood another student, this one older, a senior cadet named Den. His eyes were blank. Staring straight ahead, Rylan saw something attached to the back of Den's neck, small black threads. Like digital veins pulsing with faint blue light, he moved closer. Den, can you hear me? Den didn't respond. Instead, his body shifted into a stiff posture. His head tilted slightly, and he spoke in a mechanical tone. System lock engaged. Data carrier proximity confirmed. Rylan stepped back, gripping the rod tighter. I don't want to fight you. Den moved. Fast. Too fast for a normal human. Rylan dodged as Den's arms swung toward him. The strike powerful enough to dent the metal pillar beside him. Rylan rolled, came up behind Den, struck the rod against the cadet's shoulder not to hurt him. But to disrupt the strange neural control, Den staggered, but didn't fall. His movements became sharper, more aggressive. Rylan ducked a second attack, then a third. Den's strength was unnatural, but his attacks were predictable, too mechanical. Lacking human instinct, Rylan waited for an opening, then struck the control threads at the back of Den's neck. Sparks flew as the threads detached. Den collapsed instantly, breathing fast, eyes clearing. He looked up at Rylan, terrified. What happened to me? Rylan crouched beside him. Someone used you. Controlled you? Do you remember anything? Den shook his head violently. No, only whispers, instructions, and pain. A lot of pain. Rylan helped him sit against the wall. Stay here. Don't move. You'll be okay. Den grabbed his wrist. Rylan, whatever this is, it's spreading. Rylan nodded grimly. I know. He stood and moved to another terminal. He searched deeper into the system files, hacking through heavier encryption. The codes became more military, more familiar. Whoever built this system had experience. He opened a large file labeled Operation Veil. Inside were diagrams of implants, maps of neural pathways, and a list of cadets targeted for integration. Beside each name was a status active, pending, or failed. Rylan's name had a unique label, unlock required. Then he found another file, time-stamped 3 days before his return. Return protocol. Subject VMUST. Be retrieved. Data loss unacceptable. And beneath it, a chilling message. The war is not over. Rylan closed the file and stepped away from the screen. His breathing was steady, but his mind raced. A hidden faction inside the academy was using students as hosts, controlling them with neural technology stolen from the war. And somehow, they needed something inside him, data no one had told him he carried. The humming of machinery shifted suddenly. A new voice came through the speakers, calm but cold. "Cadet Rylan Voss, you should not be here."
Rylan froze.
The voice was familiar. Too familiar it belonged to Instructor Hal Verne, one of the Academy's most respected teachers. "Leave the archive," Hal Verne said. "Now, you are interfering with important research." Rylan looked around, searching for cameras. "This isn't research. This is manipulation. You're using students as tools." Hal Verne sighed, as if disappointed. "You misunderstand. Humanity must evolve, and your mind contains what we need to begin that evolution." Rylan's jaw tightened. "Stay away from me," Hal Verne's voice lowered. "You cannot fight what you do not see." The lights shut off. For a moment, only darkness, then a soft mechanical sound. Footsteps, multiple, moving toward him. Rylan gripped the metal rod. His eyes adjusted slowly. Shadows emerged from the darkness. 3 controlled cadets, their movements synchronized. He stepped back, but they surrounded him. Hal Verne's voice echoed through the room. "You escaped the battlefield, Rylan, but you did not escape your purpose." Cadets approached. Rylan tightened his grip, muscles ready. He whispered to himself, "I survived worse." Then he charged. Rylan walked through the dim lower corridor with slow and careful steps. The air felt heavier the deeper he went, and even though the academy always kept its temperature stable, the place felt strangely cold, as if something around him was pulling away all warmth. The lights flickered as he moved, not in a normal malfunctioning way, but as if sensing him. He had seen this sort of thing before during the war. In abandoned outposts where enemy signals crawled across electrical lines like invisible insects. His instincts told him this was not just a technical problem. Something was watching. He tightened his hands into fists. His training had taught him not to panic at shadows. But this place did not feel like shadows. It felt like a trap. The academy above was full of laughter, classes, and normal life. But underneath it all was this hidden layer that students were never supposed to see. A layer full of secrets. Cade followed behind him, and for once, the boy who used to act tough looked completely unsure. His confidence was gone. His eyes kept darting to every sound. "Are you sure this is the right way?" he whispered. Rylan nodded. "The signal I tracked comes from here. They want something inside this level." Cade repeated nervously. Rylan had no desire to scare him more, but lying would be worse. "The same people who targeted your friend? The same ones who want the data in my memory." Cade swallowed hard. "How do we stop them?" Rylan looked at him over his shoulder. "We don't stop anything until we know what we're facing. Keep quiet. Keep your eyes open. And if I tell you to run, you run." Cade nodded quickly, the bravest look he could manage. The corridor ended at a sealed door with a small panel beside it. The panel was older than the rest of the academy systems, and it hummed as if working on its own logic. Rylan placed a hand on it, feeling the strange vibration under the metal. "This system shouldn't even exist," Rylan murmured. Cade frowned. "What do you mean?" Rylan tapped the metal lightly. "This isn't academy tech. This is military research-grade tech. Someone rebuilt this part of the academy using pieces from restricted bases." Cade blinked rapidly. Why would they do that? Rylan didn't answer because the answer was becoming too obvious. He used a small multi-tool to force the panel open. Once inside, he crossed 2 wires and the door slid open with a slow, grinding sound. Dust floated into the hallway. They stepped inside. The room was large, wide, and filled with rows of equipment that looked stripped and rebuilt many times. Thick cables hung from the ceiling like dark vines. Console screens glowed faintly with status bars and cryptic text. More disturbing than anything was the metal chair at the center of the room. It had restraints and a neural headset attached to an arm that curled around it like a predatory tail. Cade stared at it. What is this place? Why is there a thing like this here? Rylan felt his stomach twist. It's a neural synchronization unit. But this one looks modified. Too much wiring. Too many external controllers. They tried to make it stronger, more invasive. Cade took a shaky step back. For who? Ryland turned away from the machine, scanning the rest of the room. Not for normal students. This is meant to connect directly to enhanced memories, like mine. Cade's eyes widened. So, everything happening is because of you. Ryland closed his eyes briefly. Not because of me. Because of what I carry? They think what I saw in the war is valuable. A faint clicking came from the far side of the room. Instantly, Ryland grabbed Cade's sleeve and pulled him behind a console. They crouched low, staring past the equipment. Footsteps echoed. 3 figures walked into wearing dark tactical suits and one wearing an instructor uniform. The instructor's calm tone made Ryland's chest tighten. "Instructor Hale?" Ryland whispered. "I knew it." Cade's face twisted in confusion and betrayal. "He's one of our top staff." "Why would he?" Ryland put a finger to his lips. They listened. Hale walked slowly around the neural unit, running his hand over it with admiration. "We're close. The cadets are responding to the test signals. Soon we'll have full control pathways. But our main subject still wanders freely." One of the suited operatives spoke. "Should we capture him now?" Hole chuckled softly. "No, Ryland Voss is not an easy target. And if we move too early, we risk losing the data. His combat augmentation is locked by trauma protocols. He will only reveal the information under the correct mental pressure. We let him think he is solving the mystery. Then he will walk right into the final stage." Cade's hand trembled beside Ryland, and Ryland placed his hand over Cade's to steady him. Another operative spoke. "What about the other cadets? If they notice the missing ones, they won't," Hale said calmly. "Memory loops are already affecting the weak-minded, and for those with stronger will, we will adjust the frequency." Cade's jaw clenched. "Weak-minded," he whispered in anger. Ryland shook his head gently, telling him not to react. Hale stepped closer to one of the screens. "We must finish before Academy leadership arrives for their inspection. If they discover the project, everything fails," the operative asked. "And you believe the war data will truly give us the advantage?" Hale nodded slowly. "The enemy we faced off-world used a shared consciousness system. Ryland's squad encountered it directly. If we can replicate even a fraction of it, humanity will rise beyond these limits. We cannot wait for natural evolution. We must push it." The operatives saluted Hale and began preparing equipment. Ryland's breath grew slow and controlled. He now understood everything. The strange behavior around the academy, the disappearances, the malfunctioning surveillance, the signals he kept detecting. Hale wasn't just experimenting, he was building an army, a connected human mind army, and Ryland was the key to perfecting their neural takeover. He leaned close to Cade's ear and whispered as quietly as possible, "We need to leave now." Cade nodded, but as they turned to retreat, a metal tray slipped off a nearby console and crashed to the floor. The entire room fell silent. Ryland froze. Then Hale's calm voice drifted through the room. "Come out, both of you. There is no need for this to be unpleasant." Ryland stood slowly, pulling Cade behind him. Hale smiled warmly, as if greeting old friends. "Ryland Voss," he said softly, "you've caused us quite a delay." Ryland kept his body steady, his voice neutral. "You're using students. You're experimenting on them without their choice." Ole shrugged slightly. "Humanity must advance. Some sacrifices are required. You, of all people, should understand what it means to endure for the greater future." "That's not advancement," Ryland said. "That's enslavement." A flicker of annoyance crossed Hale's face. "Do not be dramatic. I do not seek to harm humanity. I seek to improve it. You survived the war, Ryland, but you came back alone. I can prevent that for future generations by stealing minds." Ryland shot back by guiding them. Hale corrected. "You misunderstand what control truly means." Cade stepped forward, voice trembling but loud. "You're a monster." Hale stared at him with a disappointed expression. I expected better from you, Cadet Soren. But your emotional instability makes your mind incompatible for our project anyway. Ryland's eyes narrowed. Let him go. Hell nodded to the operatives. Take the boy. Keep Ryland intact. We need him fully conscious. The two operatives moved quickly. Ryland pushed Cade aside and met the first operative with a sharp strike to the neck. The second lunged with a shock baton. But Ryland rolled under the swing and kicked the operative's knee sideways, sending him crashing down. Cade stared, stunned. You just move. Ryland yelled. They bolted toward the corridor. Hall shouted after them, You cannot escape this, Ryland. You were made for this project. Ryland didn't look back. He and Cade sprinted through the hallway, turning corners, sliding past loose cables and dark machines. Alarms began blaring throughout the lower level. Cade's breathing grew ragged. Where do we go? Ryland grabbed his arm and pulled him forward. We warn the others. We prepare. And we fight back. They reached the lift, and Ryland slammed the emergency override. The doors closed just as the operatives reached the corner. The lift rose slowly, too slowly. Cade leaned against the wall. Cade. They were going to use us like tools. Ryland looked at him firmly. Not anymore. We stop this together. Cade nodded, a new determination forming in his eyes. When the lift opened, the normal academy halls stretched before them, bright and calm, as if the darkness below didn't exist. But now they knew the truth, and the real war was. Just beginning, Ryland stood in the academy hallway, staring at the bright lights and the calm environment that pretended everything was normal. Students walked past, laughing, chatting, and moving to their next classes. None of them knew what lay beneath their feet. None of them felt the danger growing. None of them realized the academy had become a quiet battlefield. Ryland felt the weight of what he had discovered pressing on his chest. He was used to war, but not to fighting it alone. Cade stood beside him, still shaken but trying his best to stay strong. What now? He asked quietly. Ryland looked around to make sure no one was listening. Now we find the others, the ones who haven't been affected yet. We need to warn them before Hale changes the frequency again. Cade nodded, taking a deep breath. Who do we start with? Ryland thought for a moment. Someone who actually listens. Someone who won't question everything. Someone strong-minded. They both said the name at the same time. Lyra. Lyra Javan was known for her sharp instincts and her suspicious nature. She rarely trusted teachers and never trusted rumors. If anyone could help them, it was her. But finding her would not be easy. She always moved quietly, avoiding crowds. Ryland and Cade searched the training hall first. It was nearly empty. Only the sound of practice drones echoed inside. Then they checked the tech lab, the study rooms, and the courtyard. She was nowhere. Finally, they found her sitting alone on the roof, staring at the sky with a serious expression. Lyra turned as soon as she heard them approach. You two look like you saw a ghost. Ryland shook his head. Worse. We found something under the academy. Lyra raised an eyebrow. I knew something was off. People have been acting strange. But what did you find? Cade sat down, still catching his breath. A secret lab. They're doing mind experiments on students. They took some of them already. Lyra didn't react with shock. She only narrowed her eyes. And who's behind it? Ryland answered with a heavy voice. Instructor Hale. At that, Lyra's eyes widened slightly. Hal, he's one of the Academy's top minds. This is big. Too big for us to handle alone. Ryland nodded. That's why we need your help. They're trying to create some kind of connected mind network. They want the war data in my memory. If they get it, they'll control the Academy. Lyra looked at him with a mixture of confusion and concern. You're telling me they want to use your trauma as a weapon? Not a weapon, Ryland corrected. A blueprint. Lyra stood up slowly. Then we don't have time. We need to gather a team. People we can trust. People who haven't been affected yet. Cade rubbed the back of his neck. How do we know who's affected? Ryland answered. Their eyes. Their behavior. If they act too calm or too controlled, stay away. The three of them moved back into the academy and began searching for students who still acted like themselves. It took time, but they managed to find four: Juno from the engineering class, Reth from the athletics group, Vera from the tech club, and Marin from the strategy team. They gathered everyone in a quiet storage room far from cameras and sensors. Juno crossed her arms. "Okay, what's going on? You pulled us here like something's on fire." Cade looked at Rylan. "You tell them." Rylan took a deep breath and explained everything. Hale, the secret lab, the neural unit, the stolen students, the plan to use his memory, and the growing control inside the academy. None of them interrupted. Their faces shifted from confusion to fear to anger. Reth slammed his fist into a crate. "They think they can do this to us? To our friends?" Vera shook her head. "We need proof. If we show this to Academy leadership, maybe Rylan cut in." Hal said leadership is coming soon. That means he's rushing to finish the project. If we wait, he'll control half the Academy before the leaders even walk through the doors. Marin spoke calmly. "So we act now." Rylan nodded. "We destroy the control system. We free the captured students, and we stop Hale." Juno leaned forward. "But the lower level is crawling with his operatives." "We can't fight them head on." Rylan smiled slightly. "We don't have to. We use their system against them." He laid out the plan. Juno and Vera would hack the signal output. Lyra and Moran would disable the security doors. Reth and Cade would act as the distraction team. And Rylan would confront Hale personally. Everyone would move at the same time to overwhelm the system before Hale could react. They all nodded, ready. When night fell, they moved. The academy was quiet, the halls dim. Every step echoed. Every shadow felt heavier. Rylan led the way, guiding them through secret paths he had learned during his training. Once they reached the lower-level entrance, they split into their teams. Juno and Vera hurried to the control room. Lyra and Marin began working. On the door locks, Reth and Cade positioned themselves near the central hall to distract guards, and Rylan walked alone toward the heart of the lab. The deeper he went, the more alarms he expected to hear. But none came. It felt wrong. Too quiet. He reached the main chamber and stepped inside. "Instructor." Hale stood waiting, not surprised, not angry, just calm. "You came," Hale said as if greeting an old friend. Rylan kept his eyes sharp. "You planned for this?" Hal nodded. "I predicted you would take action. You are a soldier. You cannot help but fight." Rylan clenched his fists. "Let the students go. Stop this." Hale shook his head. "I cannot. Humanity needs this evolution, and you are the final piece." He pressed a button. The neural unit in the center of the room activated, glowing with blue lights. The captured students, strapped in nearby pods, stirred with weak movements. Rylan stepped forward. "You don't know what you're dealing with." Hale laughed softly. "I know exactly what I am dealing with." But he was wrong, because at that exact moment, Juno and Vera completed the hack. The lights flickered, screens glitched, the signal that, well, used to control minds, suddenly reversed. Lyra and Marin shut down the door locks, trapping the operatives inside their own sections. Reth and Cade disabled the guards with fast teamwork. Hale's confidence shattered. "What is happening?" Rylan stepped forward, eyes burning with determination. "Humanity isn't something you control, Hale. It's something you fight for." He lunged. Hale tried to activate emergency defenses, but Rylan moved too fast. He grabbed Hale's arm, twisted it, and slammed him against the console. Sparks burst from the machine. Hale struggled, shouting, "You're ruining everything." Rylan pushed him back. "No, I'm saving them." He delivered a powerful strike that sent Hale crashing to the floor. The neural unit behind them sparked violently and shut down. The pods released, and the captured students collapsed, finally free. Rylan rushed to help them as the team arrived. Cade laughed breathlessly. "We actually did it." Juno grinned. "We beat a crazy instructor and his secret science project." Lyra crossed her arms, smirking. I told you something was wrong with this place. The room filled with relieved faces, tired breaths, and quiet victory. Rylan looked at them, all these students who used to be strangers, who once avoided him or feared him. Now they stood together like a team. Like soldiers, Reth clapped Rylan on the shoulder. You led us well. Rylan shook his head. We did this together. Sirens suddenly echoed through the academy. Academy leadership had arrived. Hale was arrested. The secret project was exposed. The academy went into a full investigation, for the first time since returning from the war. Rylan felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. He felt like he belonged. Cade walked beside him as they headed back upstairs. So, what now? Rylan gave a small smile. Now we live, train, learn, and make sure this academy never falls into darkness again. And as they stepped into the bright hallway, the students around them looked at Rylan differently, not with fear, not with pity, but with respect. The battle-hardened cadet had returned, and this time he wasn't fighting alone.